There's a moment most sharp minds know well. You're sitting in a room full of people, nodding along to a conversation, and somewhere inside, a quiet voice says, "Am I the only one who sees this differently?" Not because you think you're better, but because your brain just doesn't work the same way. And honestly, that's been both your greatest gift and your most exhausting secret. Here are 10 signs that prove exactly what that looks like in real life. Sign number 1. You've already won arguments that haven't happened yet. It's 11 p.m., you're lying in bed, the house is quiet, and you are absolutely destroying someone in an argument. Not out loud, in your head, with evidence. It started because of one comment they made 3 days ago. Something small, something most people would have forgotten by now. But your brain filed it away, pulled it back out tonight, and decided now is the time. You've thought through everything they could possibly say. You've already responded to each one. You even gave them a few good points just to make it fair. And then you dismantled those too. By the time you're done, it's midnight. You're wide awake, slightly annoyed at a person who is currently fast asleep with absolutely no idea any of this happened. And the funniest part? The actual conversation will probably never happen. Because by the time you see them again, you've already processed it, moved on, and forgiven them. Your brain just needed to win first. Sign number 2. You can tell someone is lying in real time and just watch. There's a very specific skill that nobody teaches you and nobody warns you about. At some point you realize you can tell when someone is lying to you. Not because they're bad at it. Sometimes they're actually quite good. But something small gives it away. The way the story is just a little too neat. The detail they added that nobody asked for. The half-second pause before the answer that should have been instant. And here's where it gets interesting. You don't say anything. You just sit there, nodding, watching, letting them finish. You understand something most people don't. The more someone talks, the more they reveal. So you give them the space to do exactly that. Later, alone, you'll replay the whole conversation and connect every dot, and it will all make perfect sense. People think silence means you believe them, but sometimes silence is just you taking notes. Sign number 3. You've watched someone walk straight into a disaster you already saw coming. A friend tells you about their new plan, and within about 30 seconds, your brain has already quietly run the whole thing forward. The enthusiasm, the complications, the phone call that comes 3 months later. You ask one question, just one. They laugh it off. So you do what you always do. You wish them luck. You mean it. And you privately bookmark the conversation for later. Later always comes. Your phone rings. The voice on the other end is deflated. The story they're telling you is almost exactly the one you already mapped out in your head months ago, just with more details and a few unexpected plot twists. You listen. You show up. You help them figure out the next step. And you never once say, "I saw this coming." Not because you didn't, but because being right was never the point. Showing up was. Sign number 4. You've been the unpaid, unthanked group therapist. Nobody gave you the job. There was no interview, no contract, no salary discussion. One day someone vented to you, you actually listened, and somewhere between that conversation and the next, word got out that you were the person to talk to. Now your phone lights up like a helpline on a Monday morning. The friend with the impossible situation, the colleague with the impossible boss, the family member who just needs 5 minutes, which has never once been 5 minutes in the history of that phrase. And you show up every time. You ask the right questions. You remember what they told you last month. You follow up. The only thing missing is the part where any of them think to ask how you're doing. Not out of malice. They're just dealing with their own stuff. You understand that, which is probably why you ended up in this role in the first place. The door closes. The house goes quiet. You sit down, and you're fine. Mostly. Sign number 5. You hold back 70% of what you think, and people still find you intense. You're at a dinner. A topic comes up. And within about 4 seconds, your brain has already formed a fully developed opinion, with context, nuance, and at least 2 counter-arguments built in. You decide to share maybe a third of it. You keep it simple. You pick your words carefully. You leave out the parts that might take too long to explain, and you deliver it as casually as you can. Someone across the table goes quiet. Another person shifts slightly in their seat. And later, always later, you hear through someone else that you came on a bit strong. You replay the conversation trying to find the moment. You genuinely can't locate it. The irony is that the version they found intense was already the edited version. the polished, toned down, carefully filtered version. The full thought never even made it out of your head. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you already knew this would happen, which is exactly why you only said 30% in the first place. Sign number 6. You've gone over a text 3 times to make sure it couldn't be misinterpreted, and it still was. You get a simple message, something that needs a straightforward reply. You write the response, go over it, change one word, read it again. Remove a comma that felt aggressive. Consider whether the period at the end seems too cold. Add an emoji. Remove the emoji because it feels forced. Put the emoji back. Send. And then you wait. Not anxiously, just aware. Because you know how easily things get lost between what you meant and what someone reads. 3 hours later, they respond with, "Wow, okay then." You stare at the screen. You go back and read what you sent. You read it in every possible tone of voice. Friendly, sarcastic, cold, casual. You run through the most likely interpretation, then the least likely one, then the one that makes the least sense but apparently happened anyway. You spent 7 minutes making sure that message was airtight. It was not airtight. And the worst part is, next time, you'll spend 8 minutes, and something will still land wrong. Because no matter how carefully the words are chosen, you cannot control what someone brings to the conversation before they even open the message. That realization is both incredibly freeing and deeply annoying. Sign number 8. You've broken down someone's entire personality from one comment at dinner. It wasn't even directed at you. Someone at the table made a throwaway remark, a small joke, a casual opinion about something completely unrelated. Most people laughed and moved on. Your brain did not move on. It quietly filed that comment under interesting and started working in the background, like a tab you didn't close. Because that one sentence told you something about how they see themselves, about what they need other people to think of them, about something that probably happened a long time ago that they've never fully dealt with. By the time dessert arrived, you had a working theory on their entire emotional history. You didn't say any of this out loud, obviously. You just passed the bread and asked if anyone wanted more wine. You genuinely pay attention in a world where most people are just waiting for their turn to speak. And once you see something in a person, really see it, you can't unsee it, which makes certain relationships complicated, and certain dinner parties very, very long. Sign number 9. Your gut feeling has been right so many times that ignoring it now feels irresponsible. There's no logical explanation for it, no data, no evidence, just a quiet feeling that shows up uninvited and refuses to leave. Something feels off about this person. This opportunity seems too clean. This situation has a detail that doesn't sit right. You can't point to anything specific, and that's exactly what makes it so hard to explain to anyone else. So sometimes you override it. You tell yourself you're being irrational. You go ahead with the plan, take the meeting, give the person another chance. And then it happens. The thing you felt but couldn't name shows up in full detail, right on schedule. The frustrating part isn't being right. It's the conversation you had with yourself beforehand where you almost talked yourself out of trusting it. Because here's what years of experience quietly teaches you. That feeling isn't random. It's your brain running a background calculation using every experience, every pattern, every moment you've ever paid close attention. It doesn't always come with an explanation. It doesn't need one. At some point, ignoring it stopped feeling brave. It just started feeling foolish. Sign number 10. You don't get angry fast, but when you finally do, it's very specific, very calm, and somehow more terrifying. Most people who know you would describe you as patient, easygoing even. And they're not wrong. You let a lot of things go. Small stuff, medium stuff, stuff that would have other people fired up in seconds. You process it, contextualize it, find a reasonable explanation, and move on. You've talked yourself down from more situations than anyone around you will ever know. But every so often, after the 10th small thing, or the one thing that finally crosses a very specific line, something shifts. And it doesn't look like anger. That's the part that catches people off guard. There's no raised voice, no dramatic moment, just a very calm, very clear, very precise conversation where you say exactly what the problem is, exactly why it's a problem, and exactly what happens next. No extra words, no emotion on the surface, just clarity. And people who've seen it, even once, treat you a little differently afterward. Not out of fear, just out of a quiet new understanding that the patience they've been benefiting from this whole time was never unlimited. It had a number, and somewhere along the way, they found it. And if any of this felt uncomfortably familiar, welcome to the club nobody applied for, everybody got drafted into, and absolutely no one is leaving anytime soon. And if this hit a little too close to home, part two is worse in the best possible way. Drop a comment. Let's see how many of us are in this club.